the different types of IDs, there are different requirements by going to bringit.wi.gov. You can also call 1-866-VOTE-WIS. So that's 1-866-VOTE-WIS for more information as you head into Election Day. Before heading to the polls, please be sure to check out the website myvote.wi.gov. That's where you can verify your voter registration status, make sure that it's up to date. You can also find your polling place, and you can even see what is going to be on tomorrow's ballot, what will be on the ballot for August 13th. There are a couple of other things that you should keep in mind before you head to the polls. The first is that there will be 2 statewide referenda questions on your ballot. The Attorney General has provided an explanation of the meaning of these 2 referenda. This information is posted on our website, and it's also going to be posted at each polling place. Finally, this is a partisan primary, so it's very important to remember that you can only vote for candidates of one party in this election. If you choose a party preference at the top of the ballot and you accidentally vote in more than one party's primary, the votes within the party that you chose at the top of the ballot will count towards your choice. However, if you do not select a party preference on your ballot and you accidentally vote for candidates in more than one party, then no votes will be counted for any partisan contest. So please make sure that you're paying attention to that when you're voting in the partisan primary election. Finally, a few more notes on absentee ballots. If you haven't returned your absentee ballot, you should plan to do so, please, as soon as possible, but do not plan to use the mail system. It's too late to ensure that an absentee ballot placed in the mail today will make it to your local election official in time to be counted. All absentee ballots must arrive to the polling place or the central count facility by 8 p.m. on Election Day in order to be counted. Late arriving absentee ballots cannot be counted. Options for returning your absentee ballot will differ in each municipality, so you should reach out to your municipal clerk's office. If you don't know who your municipal clerk is or how to contact them, you can find out by visiting myvote.wi.gov. And also, one option to return your absentee ballot directly to your municipal clerk is that many municipalities may allow you to return your absentee ballot directly to the polling place or to the municipality's central count facility. In this election, municipalities also now have the option to use absentee ballot drop boxes, so that may be an option for where you live. It's not a requirement. Each municipality does get to decide whether or not that's an option that's made available. You must return your own absentee ballot, or you can also return the ballot of anyone you are lawfully assisting, such as someone with a disability. Speaking of absentee voting, we have some numbers on how many ballots have been requested and received as of this morning. So as of this morning, 387,280 absentee ballots in total have been requested for Tuesday's election. 288,021 of these ballots have so far been returned to the municipal clerk. And of those, 92,171 are ballots that were completed during the in-person absentee process in that voter's municipality. We don't know exactly what turnout will be for tomorrow's partisan primary. Turnout for this type of election typically seems to be between the mid-teens and the upper 20s. To give you a couple of examples, in 2022, the partisan primary had about 27% of eligible voters that participated. And then we have one that has some of the lowest participation, which was 2008, where we saw about 9% of voters turn out for that election. And on a final note, Wisconsin voters who are looking for information on the logistics of tomorrow's August 13th partisan primary election, please remember that myvote.wi.gov is the official source of election information for the state of Wisconsin. And so with that, wishing everybody a great election day. We expect it to be a smooth election day, and we expect everything to go really well. So wishing everybody a really great election day. And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions that you all have.
Great, thank you, Administrator Wolf. It looks like we have several questions lined up, but if you do have a question and you haven't raised your hand yet, feel free to do so and we will call on you. You can press *9 if you're on the phone to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Our first question will go to Alex Scher.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. Just curious if you have any estimated or actual count of the number of municipalities using drop boxes this election.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the Wisconsin Elections Commission, we don't have a role in, really administering the Dropbox process. The commission did decide on some guidance after the court made their decision earlier this year. So each municipality gets to decide whether or not drop boxes are right for them in their community. That being said, voters can find out if their local municipal clerk has entered any information related to drop boxes for their community by going to myvote.wi.gov. And so clerks have the ability to enter Dropbox information into the statewide database, and then it will display on the MyVote website if you do indeed have Dropbox opportunities in your municipality.
Great, thank you, Alex. And we'll go to Sarah Lear.
Hi, have you had any reports of any problems with ballot drop boxes, security issues, any complaints from voters, anything like that?
To my knowledge, we have not had any, things filed with us related to drop boxes. The commission did issue a memorandum in advance of this election that did give the clerks some best practices, sort of a checklist of things to consider related to absentee ballot Dropbox security. And so our hope is, and what it seems like is that our local election officials that are choosing to utilize Dropboxes are going through that checklist to make sure that the Dropbox options that they offer to their community are secure.
Thank you, Sarah. And we'll go to Kate Morton from WisPolitics.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so yeah, I just had a quick question. There were some concerns going on with the July special election related to absentee ballots and a large number of those being challenged. Do you have any concerns about something like that happening this time around?
So our local election officials, they do have a number of resources that they can utilize as it relates to challenges and what qualifies as a lawful challenge and what would not qualify as a challenge that would be appropriate under law. And so those resources seem to be well used by our local election officials. We certainly don't expect or anticipate that there's going to be any unusual or frivolous challenges to the process. But we do believe that the local election officials and the chief inspector of each polling place has been really well trained on those matters so that they're able to handle those processes. And if there is a lawful challenge, they know how to proceed with that. But if somebody does attempt to make unlawful challenges or challenges that don't have any merit or personal knowledge associated with it, the clerks and the chief inspectors are also trained on how to handle those as well. So we're not hearing of anything unusual, but we do feel that the local election officials do have adequate training on how to handle those scenarios.
Thanks for that question. And we will now go to Matt Smith.
Hi, Megan. Just to follow up on that, on what Kate was talking about and with Glendale a few weeks ago, big picture, what have you relayed to clerks just in terms of safety and security and what to be aware of at polling locations across the state?
So our local election officials, they're always working on training related to administering elections and related to security and ensuring that they've prepared for any type of scenario that might come their way. And so this is certainly not anything new for the state of Wisconsin. Over the course of the last 4+ years, this has been the type of training that's been incorporated for our local election officials on a regular basis. Both as it comes from the Wisconsin Elections Commission. Many of them also train regionally with their county clerks on some of these scenarios as well. And so they're, that's something that's really sort of ingrained in the local election official training process at this point, is making sure that the chief inspector is aware of their authority in terms of how they run the polling place. And if somebody is causing a disturbance, that they know how to handle that and engage law enforcement if necessary. But also, just making sure that everybody, observers, the election officials, that everyone is aware of sort of what is appropriate conduct at the polling place. And we certainly don't anticipate any particular issues. But again, we think that the local election officials have been provided a great deal of training over the last 4+ years to be able to deal with any scenarios that might come their way.
Great, thank you. And we'll go now to Fox 11.
Hi, sorry, I had to unmute. Brian and Fox 11. The commission spent some time on the 8th congressional race with the dueling elections on how to explain the filling of the term and the next term. Are you dissatisfied with the wording that's on the ballot? And have you heard any issues through absentee ballotings with confusions with having the double voting for the 8th congressional?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So like you mentioned, in the 8th congressional, there is both a special election as well as the full term of the election. And so the 6-member bipartisan commission met in a public meeting and decided exactly how that should appear on the ballots. Their intent was to make sure that voter confusion was minimized. And so what they landed on is placing the term for both the special and for the full term of the election to differentiate between the two for voters and make it clear that they're able to participate in both contests. To my knowledge, I don't believe that we've received any sort of widespread reports of voter confusion in those races.
Great, thank you. And we'll now go to Mitchell Schmidt.
Yeah, thank you very much for the time. Just kind of a quick Dropbox related question. So for tomorrow, is there any sort of information you want to provide to voters? Should they avoid dropping ballots in those drop boxes, or is that kind of like a clerk by clerk decision in terms of whether those are used tomorrow, or is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Supreme Court's ruling said that the choice to utilize drop boxes is up to each municipality. So the availability of drop boxes is going to vary by municipality. Some municipalities may decide that that's something that works well for them in their community. Others may decide that it's not an option they wish to utilize. And some may decide that for the August primary, that they're not ready to utilize that option yet, but you may see that in November. So it really is a municipality by municipality decision. But your point about should voters utilize that option tomorrow, that also does depend by municipalities. So municipalities should be making it very clear to their voters, if they have a drop box, when the last pickups will be for those drop boxes, so that a voter knows whether or not that's an appropriate option for them to utilize tomorrow. If you have questions about whether or not a drop box is a viable option for you to drop off your ballot today or tomorrow ahead of the election, contact your municipal clerk. Go to myvote.wi.gov, and your clerk may have information about drop boxes posted to MyVote, or you can give them a call or send them an email and ask them about that option for your community. But the bottom line is that your ballots do have to be to the polls by 8 p.m. on election day in order to be counted. And so your local election official, if they do have drop boxes available, they're going to make it clear to voters what the last time is for them to drop it off, so that they can ensure that it gets to the polls in time to be counted. So check My Vote and check with your clerk if you're not sure if that's an option available to you in your community.
Thanks for that question, and we'll go to Vanessa Kjeldsen.
Hi, thank you so much, Vanessa Kelson, WMTV 15. Do you happen to have any numbers about the drop boxes that are being used in this election?
I do not. We do not have any numbers about the Dropbox utilization. When the commission passed their guidance to the local election officials, it gave local election officials the option to provide information on myvote.wi.gov for their voters in their community. So we don't have a count or a number statewide, but if voters are curious if there are drop boxes available in their community, they can check out My Vote or give their municipal clerk a call to find out if that's an option.
Thanks for that question, and we'll now go to Adam Roberts.
Thank you. In terms of redistricting, are you satisfied with the level of communication the state has given to voters in terms of knowing which district they may be in, given how the maps may have changed? And if there is any confusion, what should voters know about how to access that information?
Yeah, so in terms of having access to information, voters can go to myvote.wi.gov, and based on their voter registration, it's going to tell them what districts and wards that they are in. And so they're going to be able to see a sample ballot. They'll also be able to see a list of elected office holders that currently represent them. And so I think that's a really great resource for a voter to check out to see what districts they now fall in. And they'd also be able to see if their district has indeed changed. But, a voter's ballot and who's on their ballot, what districts they're qualified to vote in, depends on their address. And so when the redistricting happened, voters who are now in a new district, their registration was moved by their clerk into that appropriate district. And so you're able to, view that information now by visiting My Vote, contacting your local election official, and they can provide more information. I have not heard a lot of contact from voters expressing any sort of confusion, but certainly if voters have those types of questions, there are some really good resources to be able to see where your address falls now within those new districts, and even to be able to see, what your old districts look like and how that may have changed.
Thanks for that question. It looks like everyone's been called on, but I will give people a moment here in case we have any additional questions to raise your hands, and we'll call on you. Hope Carnob. Looks like you're still muted, Hope.
And if you're on a phone, I think it's *6 to unmute.
Still can't hear you, Hope. I'm still having trouble hearing you, Hope, so I think that we'll have to take a question over the phone or over email if you'd like to send it that way. If anyone else has a question, I'll give you a few moments here. And it looks like we are good for the day. So thank you everyone for joining this media availability. If you have questions tomorrow, feel free to send them our way. Otherwise, we're wishing everyone a great election tomorrow. Thanks for joining.
Thanks.